The marinade.
There's no O in marinade. Let's try it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
The marinade.
Marinade.
Bone marinade. The
That's
marinade.
The marinade. With Jason Earl.
1, 2, 3, 4. Daddy tried to warn me, but his only offer was busted knuckles on a monkey wrench. I guess a man will hold on to trouble when it's all he knows. Hold on tight till he's wondering where all the time went. Old man drinking them Bud Light long necks, dropping like flies in the Pall Mall smoke. Punched the clock, but it hit back twice as hard. Now they're a poor man's punchline.
Welcome to The Marinade with Jason Earl, a free-flowing conversation about the creative process with creative people. This is a bonus episode, and our guest is the legendary Rod Picott. We actually released this episode on the website, marinadepodcast.com, earlier this year, and I decided to take some of those conversations and release them as bonus episodes that'll hit your regular podcast feed here at the end of the year. We had the great fortune of getting to sit down with some of the folks that made the best records that came out in 2019 in my mind, and Rod is certainly one of those. His record Tell the Truth and Shame the Devil came out in July, and it's just absolutely brilliant. It floors me every time, and I'm so thankful for this opportunity. Head on over to rodpicott.com for everything Rod, marinadepodcast.com for everything The Marinade. Follow us on social media. Give us a subscribe on your podcast app. Every little bit helps. We appreciate y'all so much. 2019 was one of the best for The Marinade, and I'm so excited for 2020. Everyone, it is my distinct honor to present my conversation with Rod Picott.
Songs that paint the hard line in a beautiful light. If that tin can rooster on his rusted weather vane up and flew, the cold wind would blow just the same and keep calling my name.
Hello.
Hey, this is Jason Earl from the Marinade Podcast, actually recording a phone call with Rod Picott. Dude, thank you.
Do you see needles moving? Are there needles moving? Is the red bouncing?
It's red, and I'm such a dum-dum, and this whole thing's been such an experience, and I'm so grateful that you agreed to do this again.
Of course.
Because I got to the end of that conversation, and I like bounded into the other room because I was really excited about it. And I told my partner, Chris, like, man, that was awesome. I finally got to interview Rod, and it was amazing. And he opened up so much, and it was so beautiful. Let me just go save it, and then we'll go have some dinner. And I get back, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell this file is. I can't do anything with this.
That's funny. It happens all the time. I mean, it happens in recording sessions, you know. I mean, somebody plays something magic and you go back in the booth and The engineer didn't catch it.
So you have had that happen to you?
Oh yeah, it happens. It's just, they're just machines, and they don't always work the way you expect them or want them to. And you just have to let it go and try again. Tie your boots and try again.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the resiliency, which I think is a good lead-in to the conversation that we had last time, and some of the stuff I want to talk about this time is that ability to bounce back. And, this is also fun for me because I get to gush about your record some more to you. Tell the Truth and Shame the Devil, which comes out July 19th. And I absolutely love, like I told you last time, and it came out of like this turbulent period for you. And can you talk, you talked last time we discussed a little bit about how this record came about, and then, how specifically as you were going through such a tough time with your health that you were able to still create, and not only create, but create this incredible record.
Well, there's a few things to unpack there. I had it in the back of my mind to make a, completely stripped down album at some point. And when I started having the health issues this past winter, I was in the middle of writing for the record and trying to see what the record was going to be, although I didn't have any particular idea of how I was going to record it, or, if there would be a band, or if there would be a small band, a big band, or a rockin' record, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But, the health issues with my heart were pretty profound for a couple of weeks there. It was quite frightening, but I was in the middle of writing, and so it sort of redirected the course of the writing, and it made this, emotionally and mentally, I was going through a sort of period where I was thinking, well, this could be the last one. It was possible that this was going to be the last record. And not to be over dramatic about it, but that was a possibility for a couple of weeks until we got the thing figured out. And so it really pushed my writing to slightly away from the kind of narrative thing that I usually do, and more towards, I just wanted to get to kind of try to get to the raw truth of where I am in my life and how I got here. And so all those questions, because of the health stuff, because of the heart problem, those things were just on my mind. And so I dug in pretty hard, I went to the shed and got a shovel and started digging. And so I dug as deep as I could, and I really, really tried to be as honest and open as I could. And some of it comes out in, if anybody's being honest to that level, some of it's going to be uncomfortable, and some of it's going to be, you're confronting yourself and asking yourself questions. So there's going to be some self-loathing in there. There's going to be some, questions about why didn't I do this, or, why am I alone at 54 years old? And a question that I kept asking myself was, am I more afraid of the hurt of a broken relationship if it doesn't work out than I am in love with the idea of being with somebody? Oh
wow!
And that sort of teeter-totter,
Did you
back and forth.
Did you come to any resolution on that?
I didn't. I've been through a few short relationships over the last couple of years, but I haven't really, been in what I would call a real relationship for quite a while. And luckily I really love writing, so I have a place to put that. That part of myself goes into the writing right now.
Well, clearly, 3 albums in 3 years. 2 books of poetry. A novel and a screenplay in the works.
Yeah, and a book of short stories that just released. I just did the launch launch party just the other day at Grimey's here in Nashville for the book
cool.
of short stories. Oh, it was wonderful. Radney Foster did this beautiful introduction, and it might have been his introduction might have been better than anything I read from my book.
Wow. He did an introduction for the book, or he presented an introduction at the release?
Yeah, both.
Both.
He wrote up this introduction and introduced me at the event, and we had pretty good for a book launch.
Yeah.
They're usually pretty small, especially at my level. But I don't know. We had 50 or 60 people there. It was pretty packed for a record store, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful. And I read from the book, and I sang some of the accompanying songs, and which was a little singing songs I'm used to, right? Used to standing on stage and kind of inhabiting that space, and reading is, of course, new for me.
Yeah.
So juggling back and forth, with my reading glasses and the book and the two guitars and the harmonica was a bit funny. It was like, putting out a grease fire and juggling at the same time.
Those disciplines, I think there are obviously some commonalities between writing a short story and writing and or performing a song, but they are very different. And I wonder whether you, so when you get up to write, are you going in with the purpose of, I'm going to write a short story, or are you going in with the purpose of, I'm going to write a song, or just whatever the muse wants is what it gets?
Yeah, you're right. It's whatever whatever the muse wants. I just feel, I love writing. I love all the different forms. I love writing poetry. I love writing prose. I love fiction and songwriting, and I just kind of feel like which one wants me that day, and I'm usually, I've been writing for so long that my spine is rarely wrong. Rarely do I start something and I think, oh no, there's something else I should be doing.
Wow.
I'm usually pretty. My instincts are honed fairly sharp in that way.
Was there a turning point where you realized that, or is that just a progression?
I think it just happens slowly, It happens over the years. I remember, working really hard on songs early on in my career, and not having that sort of feeling of when I got it right. And it's not, it's all subjective. It's not getting it right, but it's, did you write what you intended to write? Did you get on the paper what you were trying to get to? And is it honest when you read it back? Does it feel good in your spine? Occasionally, you're not sure until you get in front of an audience. I can't think of a song in particular, but occasionally there's a song, that I'm unsure about, and I'll get in front of an audience, and I'll find out there. Like, I'll see their. It's not like I'm judging it from their response, but I'll feel how I feel singing it to them.
Yeah, I think that's like the Guy Clark quote where I'm paraphrase. I should paraphrase really, but he says something to the effect of, the songs aren't finished until you've played them live, or you've played them for people.
Well, I've never heard that quote, but I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
They reveal themselves to you. They reveal how true they are when you sing them in front of people. And sometimes it's a tough pill. It's a big old horse pill to swallow, and it can be disappointing. And sometimes it's very exciting.
So what do you do when it is disappointing?
You stop playing it. Everybody's capable of writing a lie, that maybe looks pretty on the paper,
right,
but is not really true down in your soul. And And that does happen occasionally. It does happen occasionally. And that's just part of it. And
Yeah.
you leave those behind, and you move on, and you keep playing the ones that make you feel relevant and make you feel true, like you're being truthful when you sing them.
Well, and Tell the Truth and Shame the Devil is full of those songs, of the really true songs. And it's the thing that I just find really fascinating, and I wonder about what your thoughts on this is, that you're laying yourself so bare, and I wonder if there are times when you write something, especially like some of these songs, you write something and you go, oh man, that's too much. Like, that's true, but I'm letting myself out there too much. Like that line that we talked about last time that just continues to floor me. It's like 3 lines into the album. I drink myself to sleep at night. Can't tell myself I don't.
Yeah. I mean, the strange thing is there's a kind of dichotomy. These things are at push and pull against each other, because here I am doing an interview with you, right? And I'm trying to be as open as I can and as honest as I can, and not trying to be, manipulative to what your audience is going to hear. Right. But in my own life with people, I'm very, very private, and I always have been. So the two things conflict, and I suppose it's the writing that allows me to address those things, because I'm so quiet and private in my own life with friends. I mean, nobody even knew that I was going through those the heart problems this winter, except for the friend that was driving me, because you can't drive yourself. I mean,
yeah.
and the back operation in the middle of that, that
my
too.
Goodness.
So
are there moments where, even with the writing, that you pull back though, or if it's
no,
out
I
there?
didn't. I sure didn't this time.
Yeah.
I wanted to. I wanted to really, really get down into the dirt, because, like I said, I honestly didn't know if this would be the last record, and in some ways it's so raw and so vulnerable, and certainly vulnerable in like Mama's Boy and A Guilty Man, and even Folds of Your Dress. Yep. Those are very, very vulnerable songs, and they might be a little difficult to play on stage, but I'm damn well going to play them.
Right. You mentioned Folds of Your Dress, and you in the liner notes, one of the cool things that I love about the liner notes is you have little blurbs about each tune. And on that one, and then you mentioned to me last time we talked, the fact that the structure of that song is different, that you use 3-line verses, and that's not really typically how you would write. Can you talk about that decision, and was that designed to sort of serve the narrative in some way, or is that just how it ended up?
It came from the melody, and it also came from watching. I was trying to be, I'm not a great guitar player. I have kind of a thing that I can do that is, relatively pleasing, but I'm not a very sophisticated guitar player. And so I have found that that I have to be careful about not repeating myself. And so Folds of Your Dress, the 3-line verses came out of the melody, really. And it was sort of a happy accident, to be honest. I was looking for something a little bit different so that I wouldn't repeat myself on the record. And I wrote a lot for this album. There were 5 tunes that come with the pre-sale bonus tracks. I mean, the bonus tracks that come with the pre-sales. And there were another 5, I think, that just kind of felt a bit repetitive, like the ones on the record or album are better versions of the ones I left off, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So they were just a little more sharply drawn and a little bit more on mark. So yeah, so it was just a just me looking for a different way to write.
Right.
Even though the guitar playing is exactly the same, but it was just me looking for something, to keep it fresh.
Right.
Yeah, and it worked. Yeah.
I want to go back to that point you made about when we were talking about how the song, you don't really know it until you've played it for people and you get that feedback from them. But do you think about that similarly with a poem or a short story where you're not necessarily reading it in front of people? Sure, you might at an event that you do, but you're putting it out there into the world for the most part kind of blindly. You're not getting that feedback directly the way that an audience would give it to you. Do you think about it similarly?
Well, they are a little different. I think about it similarly, but it's just like what you just said. The truth is, the fact is that you don't necessarily read poems aloud to people. They're meant for people to read, and certainly short stories, certainly the fiction is just meant for people to read. So that's more a matter of you do have less to sort of guide you. You don't have that moment where you get to find out, whether this thing is good or whether this thing is true with with poems and short stories, as opposed to a song where and almost everybody is like this, I think. And like immediately, the first couple times you play a song, you know if it's working or not.
Yeah.
And occasionally you get one that will take on a different life later on if you find a different way to play it. Maybe you're playing it too slow, maybe you're playing it too fast, you're rushing it, or maybe the way you're delivering the lyric isn't quite right, and you can adjust that a little bit, and all of a sudden it'll start working. But that's a little bit rare. You usually know pretty quickly. In terms of the fiction, I'm just trying to line those bony little words up so that they make pretty sentences. I'm just trying to, however dark the stories might be, and they are pretty dark.
Nah. That's shocking. That's a plot twist.
It's just you do what you're drawn to do. I mean,
Yeah.
if I had chosen this line of work for monetary reasons, well, first of all, I'd be an idiot. Second of all, I'd be writing very different kinds of stories and songs. I'd be, trying to write a beach read. But I just follow, at this point in my life, I've just followed my instincts as carefully as I could for so long, that I just don't know any other way to do it.
Yeah.
Like I follow the work that I'm drawn to do, and then I try to find the people who are going to like it.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Well, I love that approach, and that seems like to me the way to do it with any sense of integrity is going to be to do what your instinct says to do, and that's why your work comes across so authentic and so honest.
Oh, that's incredibly nice thing to say. That's what I'm aiming for, and sometimes I hit it and sometimes I don't, but
Sure.
That's certainly what I'm aiming for. I'm trying to quote that Wilco documentary, I'm trying to break your heart. That's what I'm trying to. I'm not just trying to break your heart. I'm trying to obliterate it.
Right. It's working, man. I can't put the record down, but it is a tough listen. I mean, the reality is that those songs are just brutal. I mean, they're gorgeously written, and I love what the decision that you made. I mean, I would imagine it had to be there's a certain level of courage involved in doing it the way you did. You talked earlier about the fact that you had to decide whether, hey, is this going to be a full band record or what is this going to be? And it just ends up, if I'm not mistaken, it's just basically you with a guitar and some harmonica in there. I mean, it's pretty much just laid bare, right?
That's it. The entire record there's not the only overdubs are a couple of harmonica parts that I wanted to, as a bed underneath, where I was singing. The rest of it is complete whole takes, from beginning to end, and with no overdubs whatsoever. I pushed myself really hard on this one.
I love it, man. And I was listening to it again earlier today, and that song 80 John Wallace, your voice almost gives out at a moment. And I just think that's so beautiful and brave to just, because you could have very easily gone back and re-recorded that, I mean, laying it bare the way that you did has an effect on the listener that I think, for me at least, I can of course only speak for me, it draws me in even deeper to the song.
Yeah, I mean, I think, leaving all that vulnerability of those sort of, cracked notes and, guitar, fingers squeaking on the guitar, and leaving, it's intimate, it's just so intimate. And I love recordings like that. I mean, one of my favorite recordings ever is Patty Griffin's first record, Living with Ghosts. And, that's how that record was made. It's just her standing at the mic, singing. They were the demos for the album. They went and made the album after, and then they went back and said, "Now this is actually the thing."
That's great.
Similarly, as Springsteen's Nebraska,
right.
They tried to make the record after and went back and said, "No, we're just not going to beat this."
Yeah.
And I sort of had that in mind, and also those first couple of Johnny Cash records that he made with Rick Rubin, I had those in mind too. I was thinking of how beautifully raw they are,
Yeah. I didn't think about that. I definitely hear that now.
Yeah. I had that in mind. And I had that in mind when I sent it to Nielsen Hubbard to mix. Although there's not much to mix really.
Right.
More EQ. And but on those Rick Rubin records that he did with Johnny Cash, he stuck, especially the first couple, he stuck the vocal way up front. It's just the vocal is just right in your face.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we were aiming at. That was sort of our template. We wanted to make that kind of record. So there were a few albums that I was listening to, thinking, how raw can you actually get? How raw can you be?
That's wonderful.
And turns out you can be pretty damn raw.
Yeah. Totally exposed. Well,
yeah.
Speaking of listening to records, what are you listening to, and what are you reading and otherwise consuming art-wise?
Oh, that's interesting. Let's see. I'm reading a book from a woman named Nicole Sirocco called Lit by Lightning. That's an interesting read. It reads a little bit like Nicholson Baker, who I love. It's just kind of she's sort of writing just her thoughts, or just sort of running thoughts through the book, and so it's an interesting read. I've got some Raymond Carver on deck, and let's see. I just finished. What did I just finish? Where is it? I just finished Gods of Howell Mountain by Taylor Brown, which is just a miracle of a book.
Oh wow!
One of the best things I've read in a long time, along with Brian Panowich's Bull Mountain and Like Lions. And what am I listening to? I'm deep in the fiction world right now because I have this new book that just came out. So I've been just drowning in books, and just book after book, devouring them. What am I listening to? I'm still listening to Jason Isbell's Southeastern. think that record is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's my
just
favorite of all time.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best records of the last 20 years.
Yeah.
I just think it's a phenomenal piece of work.
Yeah.
And it's special, you know. There's something special about that record. And I think Jason knows it too. Let's see, what else? James McMurtry's Complicated Game I was listening to.
Yeah.
Patty Griffin's Living with Ghosts. What else did I bring? Tom Waits. I just got off the road, so I had all these with me. Tom Waits' live album, Glitter and Doom. That was called. Yeah, and that's a crazy, wild ride of a record.
I heard that Tom Waits live is unlike anything. Like, that's the show that everybody else is trying to catch up to. A buddy of mine who's a jazz musician went into it not knowing a lot about Tom Waits and just blown away.
It's theater, you know, like it really is. It's blues, rock, jazz, theater. You have, I'm not sure how this works for other people because, I completely expose myself on stage in terms of the songs and what they're like. And Tom is an absolute mystery, isn't he? I mean, you have no idea. You have no idea from his performance who he is.
Yeah.
He just creates this entire world that you can dive into. It's very special. Yeah.
With those stories you hear about him, like the hijinks he gets into, he just like sort of pops up every once in a while, and I'm trying to think of who it was. I'm butchering this story. I want to say it was like Julian Casablancas from the Strokes, that he was around Tom Waits, and Tom Waits stole his watch, allegedly. Like, always. It's not like the most Tom Waits thing ever, though, right? That, like, he plotted to steal this rock star's watch. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. Maybe I'm butchering the story, but it still works for, like, the myth of Tom Waits.
I have my favorite Tom Waits story is I have a friend whose brother is a wonderful upright bass player, and he happened to be at a party out on the West Coast, somewhere in that wine country region where Tom apparently lives. And Tom was there, and so all these musicians were playing. They were just kind of playing into the night. It was 2:00 in the morning, and somebody said, "Well, let's play this." And my buddy's brother, the bass player, said, "What key?" And Tom was sitting at the piano and said, "What difference does it make?"
That's great.
I love the wild weirdness of I just want to know what key it's in. What difference does it make?
Yeah.
Well, it really doesn't, but it would help to help me pick the right notes.
Right. That's great, man. Well, Rod, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I do want to tell you a quick story about last time we talked about Brian Koppelman, and I had just coincidentally tweeted to Brian Koppelman discussing the idea of doing phone interviews because I knew I was going to talk to you, and he had just released an episode of his podcast, The Moment, where he did a phoner. Yeah. And then I tweeted after we had talked, before I knew that I had not captured the recording, and I told him that I had spoken with you, and Koppelman responded that he said about you, he said, "He's a good man and a great songwriter."
Oh, geez, that's a huge compliment because he is he's an incredibly smart guy and so talented. And he was very kind. He gave me a blurb for my music years ago, and
awesome.
He's brilliant.
Yeah,
I mean, he's somebody that I can have no hesitation in saying that's a brilliant man.
Right.
And a lot of my work ethic comes from, like I told you last time, that Vine series that he did. We were just talking about script writing and talking about writing screenplays, and he had one little Vine that just said, if you just write a page a day, you've written 3 movies in a year.
Yeah.
Just remember that. That's how you think of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a march. It's a marathon.
Yeah.
And so you just keep going, you know, you just keep going every day. So it had a big effect on me, that very simple concept.
Yeah, that's what his I never saw the Vine series, but that's what his podcast, The Moment, does for me. And I was actually listening to it earlier today on my run, and and the conversation he was having there opened up a different portal for me. And it seems like every time I get those nuggets, but that idea of doing the work, which is what you're referring to, that work ethic. I mean, I certainly have thought of myself for a long time as a hard worker, but creatively, I think I previously thought about it as, well, I just kind of, go through life experiencing it, and then something will strike, and I'll have a creative idea, and then I'll write that creative idea down instead of getting up and doing the work, And since being exposed to Compliment, now I get up and do the work every day.
I mean, that's the thing. That is if you're waiting on it, it may or may not come. Mm-hmm. But if you open the door and invite it in, you've got a much better chance of catching something.
Right.
You've got a much better chance of catching that wave.
Mm-hmm.
Just having your antenna up all the time instead of sort of waiting for something to call on you. Right. Just keeping your antenna up. Mm. Yeah. I think that's sort of how I think about it. Anyway.
I like that a lot. Keeping your antenna up and
Yeah.
sitting down and doing the work.
Yep, both
That's
of those
awesome.
things. Part of it is inspiration, and part of it is just getting your hammer and chisel out and just start carving. It'll turn into something.
Right. And if it's not good, so what? You did the work and you've grown from that.
And sometimes you have to make sometimes you have to do the bad work to get to the good work.
Mm.
Or you might get one little piece out of it. You might get one line or just a concept, or there might be something hidden in there. Slade Cleaves and I write together a lot, and we think of it as having a sort of junkyard. That the stuff that doesn't work goes into the junkyard, and then when you need a new flywheel, you go out to the Pontiac that's in the back there, and you find the flywheel.
Mm-hmm.
Take it off and put it on the new piece, on the new car.
Right.
So you sort of have this body of stuff to pull from when you need it.
Oh, I love that. Oh man.
Yeah.
Rod, thank you so much, man. What's the book called, and where can folks find it?
The book is called Out Past the Wires. It's on my website, rodpicott.com. We're trying to keep it away from the evil empire that begins with A, and it's also at the publisher is Working Title Farm, and so far we're having really good luck with it. We're getting tons of book orders from independent bookstores all across the South, and now up in Maine, where I grew up. And,
right.
And we're excited about it. It's brand new, so.
You made me think of something we talked about last time, which was that the new record, Tell the Truth and Shame the Devil, out July 19th, that you're not going to stream it, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I am not. And, I made that decision for a few different reasons, because this record is so personal. Mm-hmm. And, musicians today, everybody's just giving the stuff away.
Yeah.
The streaming services are killing us. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like, I kind of feel like I made something really special and small and intimate. I almost feel like I made a piece of folk art. And, you're going to have to drive over to Tennessee to get it, if you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love that.
If you want one, they're here, but you gotta come over and pick one out, you know? I'm sort of thinking of it like that. So we might stream a couple of songs just to have a presence there so people can find it, but we're not giving the whole thing away.
Yeah.
And if that means less sales, that's fine with me. That's perfectly fine with me. This one's special to me, and so I'm gonna have people come to me for it.
Well, it is a special record, and I'm grateful for it, and I'm grateful for you and your time. I'm going to go get the book and read it. I'm going to go to rodpicott.com right now, actually, and order it. And, Rod, thank you so much for doing this and doing it again.
I'm happy to do it. Happy to talk to you. And if I can ever do anything to help you get somebody else that you'd like to have on, I'm happy to help. So
man, thank you so much.
Feel free to reach out.
I appreciate it, Rod. All right, man. Take care.
You, Jason.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
bye-bye.
All right.